Means that some idiot, let's just call them what they are, welded in here, did some flap wheel die grinder stunt and slammed a bushing back in it. I've seen that a lot. So it's no wonder that it catastrophically failed this time. Well, good morning everybody. So our next project has arrived. This is, I guess you'd call it a link that's part of this, I don't know if it's BRON or BRON, I don't know how you pronounce that, but it's a big tiling machine for tiling farm fields. I don't know if, I think this is a plow type. There's rotary ones that, you know, have a big wheel that digs a trench and lays tile in. I think this is the kind that's just a direct pulse, a giant single bottom plow that just gouges the thing in. Anyway, this is the bottom link. It takes all the load. So it has spherical bushings in it. See, I got a few of them here in the box. And it has been beat to death. I mean, she's cooked. Check this out. And like, look at this. So what's happened in here, obviously, is it got run way longer than it should have. Bushings were shot, and then they got busted up, and the broke up pieces just got fed to the machine. So both sides just gnawed to bits. So this is a really, actually kind of a challenging project on a couple of levels. First off, I see definite evidence that somebody has been in here ahead of me. I think the reason it got so destroyed is somebody did a shady welded up. My theory, it's so wrecked, it's hard to tell, but I see evidence of welding, and I think somebody did one of them, run a bunch of weld beads in, die grind it until the bushing fit back in the hole trick is probably what happened. And then that's what caused the catastrophic failure. See, up on this end, we've got a couple, that one is still in and tight. This one, well, that one's a little bit on the loose side. You can't tell it because it don't go in there. But what probably was is somebody had some holes that were a little hurt like that and tried a shady hand fixing job. That's what a lot of times causes this kind of catastrophic failure, because if you do the whole weld them up and die grind it till the bushing fits, you're never round. You're never making proper contact, and what'll end up happening is you'll be squishing the bushing a little out of round when you stuff it in there, and then the load on it will be completely uneven, and it will shatter it the first time it gets under heavy load. Instead of just wearing out and rattling around, it actually breaks, and breakage is what causes this kind of mess. But that's all conjecture, but I'd say high likelihood based on my past experiences. So at any rate, the trick here is what to do with this darn thing. I mean, this face here, you can see completely smoked. I think, here's where it's challenging on a few levels. I'm debating whether I set this thing up on the boring mill and cut it oversized and then pull it out and weld it. I hate doing that. It's such a waste of effort in and out of the mill twice, but so gnawed up. The thing that I'm worried about is when they've got busted up this bad, you almost always embed little chunks of the bushing material into the bore. And if you hit those when you come along boring later, you're in deep dookie. But I haven't had a lot of trouble with that hand welding. With the bore welder, it'll just kind of run right across something like that and leave it in there. Hand welding, especially if you've got her cranked up good and hot, it tends to melt them little pieces down, and you might end up with a spot in the sidewall that's a little harder than normal, but I don't think I've ever had it where I've got a chunk that's like, I can't cut that. So I think we're going to go ahead and just go to building. I mean, these are whomped and wallowed so far oversized that if I do an even halfway decent job of getting centered up, I probably won't even be anywhere near the original surface anyway. So I think I just talked myself into it. That's what we're going to do. We'll go in here and just start building this up and then get in the boring mill and go to cutting her back. So we got to do those two and that one. Now, I think I've mentioned this in the past. I normally will not just do one hole when you've got two holes in line with each other, because there's just too much risk of them not being dead true to each other. But in this instance, it's actually two separate pins going through ears, and it's got spherical bushings. As much as I would normally object to this, I can't honestly see where it matters that much. I mean, my plan is to get set up on the boring mill with, we'll see here. I probably will face that side, yeah, because this isn't that tore up, and I want to be able to mill this face off. So I'll set it up with this side facing the column, and then what I'll do is I'll come up here, sweep this hole, and then reach through and cut that one is how we'll do it. So at any rate, we're going to get rolling here and get on with our project. Just in case you're wondering, we're back at it with this VBOR plasma cutter, which I got to tell you, I don't know that it's made it on camera a lot because it's been a lot of little stuff, but I have been using the snot out of this thing. And I don't think I told any of you guys this, and don't murder me when I do tell you, but I actually made the decision and sold my Miller plasma cutter. Now, if I'd had a nice new late model one, I'm sure I wouldn't have done that, but my old one, I came to the conclusion that this nice light little portable rig worked just as good as my Miller. Way cheaper to operate, just lighter, easier to get around with, and the consumables, I mean, that just way, way, way cheaper. And I decided, because I'd been keeping the Miller as a backup, and then I thought, you know what, if this one blows up, for 185 bucks, I'm going out and buying another one. We're not even going to screw with the Miller. So at any rate, I threw the thing on Facebook Marketplace, sold it for 250 bucks, and I'm 100% VBOR plasma cutting now. Alright, so for this, I take the guard right off and just start gouging gouging. Alright, well guys, I think we are discovering something really ugly here. So let's look at this in a minute, the not destroyed end. What we've got up here is a wear plate on the outside, wear plate on the inside. You can see, let me get the right angle, like right here, you can see there's the seam, and then here's the seam between those. Like they just welded them around the outside, which is how they would normally do it. I think the idea is, and I like it, that you can go in there and gouge the weld off, take the plate off, put a new one on if the wear gets too outrageous. So over here, one of the things that had been baffling me is how this could get that tore up without, you know, like here, some of these gouges went as deep as what the thickness of that plate would be. And I thought, how is that possible without the plate just ripping off? Now up in here, I could see some evidence of a bit of weld. And I was assuming that what that meant is that I was looking at a situation where they'd been welding in the bore. So anyway, after, you know, doing my poking around here and finding what I thought was some evidence of the parting line between these two, I decided, you know what, we're going to just take that side plate off. So I start gouging, and I get shaved in over here, and I see a little bit of a crack. So I thought, oh, there's the edge of the plate. So I start hammering. It does not look to me like I'm seeing a crack running this way. It looks like I'm seeing one running that way. And now what I'm starting to suspect is that at some point in the past, this thing got really destroyed, and somebody bored it out and slammed a sleeve in there and welded it in, but did a pretty shady job of it. I mean, I've only got a ½ an inch material here. I would normally never thin out an ear that thin. Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to decide where to take it apart at, but we have to tear, basically what I've realized, we have to get to the bottom of whatever they added. If that really is a sleeve that's just slammed in there and welded on the faces, I cannot weld the bore in it up, because what happens is it shrinks it and you end up with a gap in between the two, and then when you go to running it, it'll hammer around, break whatever crappy little welds they've got around it, and then that whole slug will be working around in there. So I think, as much as I'm cringing at the thought, we've got to just start carving and take this thing apart one piece at a time until we get back down to wherever the base metal starts and stops at. But it's going to be an ugly bunch of work, and we're going to have to talk to the customer, because this is way beyond the scope of what I quoted on this job. When it was honestly, they sent me some pictures. I didn't realize, like I could see like that face. In the pictures, these faces being so destroyed didn't show up that much. And I said, well, yeah, it's probably $1,200 bore fixing job. I just talked to him and told him, well, if I'm holding to that price, but if I'd have seen how bad the faces were, it'd have been an $1,800 job. Well, no, if this turns into a dismantle it one piece at a time and put it back together, we're just throwing that whole thing right out the window and coming up with a new number. So, at any rate, I will, I think what I want to do is I want to find out, am I right that there's some kind of, I'd like to be able to believe I could see it in here, but I suppose, though, they had to have run weld beads around there, and they've just, between being welded in and then hammered and destroyed, you just cannot find the parting line. I think we'll do a little bit more gouging here and see what we get. Yeah, I think we're going to try washing that face off a little bit more with the plasma cutter. Maybe there's hope after all. Not as ugly as I thought. I mean, it's ugly, but we'll take anything we can get at this point. It does kind of look to me like there is some weld in there. Like I'm peeling off a plate, but I think that isn't just all displaced metal. I think somebody added some material in there. What an ugly mess. But the good news is that I can just take the cup wheel, clean that up, weld a new plate on it, and get on with life. Like we won't have any face machining to do, which is great. That was the part I was most dreading. So this I can deal with. What I'll probably do, let me think about this, is I will weld the bore up. I'm just thinking out loud here. I won't do any face fixing here. I'll weld the bore up, get the bore to where I want it, then grind it off flat, flatten off my weld as a matter of fact, and then weld the ring on, and I'll make my ring undersized so that it gets bored with the rest of the bore when I put down the boring mill is what we'll do. But all right, now that we've had a little success there, we're going to go after it and try and do the same thing this side now, but I'll bring you back when we get that wrapped up. All right, so I figured out, by the way, why I was getting the pilot but no arc. The electrode in there had loosened up, so actually nothing wrong at all, just needs to be tightened. So we've got this off, and now we have definitely found the smoking gun. I cut all the way around the outside and had to shear it off that. That's a bunch of goobery weld coming through from inside the bore. The fact that there's weld just here and not on around the bore tells me somebody definitely did a shady bullcrap fix-it job, because if you had welded the bore and machined it properly, there'd be weld all the way around, and the fact that I only have weld in the side that it wants to wear towards the worst means that some idiot, let's just call them what they are, welded in here, did some flap wheel die grinder stunt and slammed a bushing back in it. I've seen that a lot. So it's no wonder that it catastrophically failed this time. But at any rate, we are going to now, I say, I'm feeling so much better about this job now that I've got those off there, because as ugly as that is, I basically still have an intact surface. You know, it's hammered out here, and I got to get in here with a cup wheel and knock the welds down, but basically a little bit of work with a hand grinder and I'm ready to put a face back on that again and trust that it's where it ought to be. So that just is enormously relieving, considering the scope of this project. So at any rate, I'm going to get on with cleaning up these bores as best I can. I think I'm going to get out my die grinder, work over the insides of these holes a bit, and then set up and start welding is the plan. So I'll bring you guys back when there's something worth showing. Okay, I thought it over a little more, and I decided with a surface this battered, like I do not intend to grind in there enough to get past all of that. But with a surface this battered, it's going to have grease and grime and just general contamination hammered in. I'm going to heat this thing up and try and burn out as much as I can before I go to grinding. So time to get set up for some grinding. I think we're just going to go to welding. I'm sure some of you are going to scream and say, oh, I got to clean the hole up some more. Now you're going to see why it is that I like running dual shield. The dual shield burns through this stuff better than solid wire, has been my experience. Gets more penetration. It acts more like stick welding. You know, something like this, I'd go after this with stick without even batting an eye. Stick it burn right through that mess. And say the only other way to go about this would be to take this thing and set it up on the boring mill that I can see, punch it out and then weld it. But we'll have so much more time into it that unless I can really convince myself that the end result is going to be better, I can't justify the hours. And it won't. I mean, that's the simple fact. Like, doing this, I'm likely to get a pock mark here and there just from some, you know, bubble of contamination that me torching and welding doesn't burn out of there. But a few of those makes no difference whatsoever to the bore. And yeah, I mean, the only other question is, you know, good adhesion to the base metal. And like I said, that dual shield, it'll melt and burn into there to where it'll be tied right in. So we'll start welding, see how she looks after a few passes here. So, let's see, I got one or two little worm trails over there, but otherwise it is burning in, cooking in nice. This is where I really like the dual shield. I can guarantee you if I tried to go after that bore with solid wire, it wouldn't look like that. So, I gotta do a little ciphering here, but from the looks of this bore, I'm pretty sure I've got to lay more around that side. I mean, all the wear tends to go to that direction, so I'll do a little measuring here, but I'm pretty confident that one pass does it there, but then I've got a bunch more buildup to do into that corner. But at any rate, we're making progress. It's looking good. Well, we're making progress. I believe I have both of these built up enough around the bottom side here to clean up. So before I start flipping and flapping, we're gonna go ahead and hit that end. That just needs one pass all the way around it, because it's just, you know, the bushing isn't tight anymore, but it didn't get pounded out. So anyway, I'm going to do the same thing I did on these, where I'll just, except for one pass, halfway around that. And then what I think I'm going to do is take this thing and stand it on end this way and do some, is that a good idea? And I'm second guessing myself. I guess I need to weld this face. This face is really cooked. I need to add a bunch of material around here. This one, I don't think we're going to add anything to. I think we're just going to hit that with a cup wheel, clean it up a bit, leave it be. I don't think it's bad enough to justify. We'll see. See what it looks like when I start grinding on it. If it's too ugly, we might add some to that too. But at any rate, I want it standing on edge for that. It's way easier to do the welding and the grinding both if it's laying flat. So at any rate, weld on the other end, and then it's time to start flipping this around. Okay, so I've got, this is the end that was oversized but not destroyed, and I've got it welded halfway around. Now, one thing I'm doing different than usual is I normally build up the edges, you know, trying to get as much of a square corner as I can. I'm not doing that on this one. The sphericals, well, you can see on the one that's still in here, they stop back from the edgeways because the ball in them is wider than the outer race. And so we don't really care if the edge sloughs off a little. It only is a matter of appearance. And because this is a plate that's added on, and that is, I actually would like to not put any more weld into those than I have to, with the idea being that if anybody ever needs to replace those because of side wear, you know, in the original, you can just blow the outside weld and pull the ring off. Now, I'm adding weld here But if I don't go too crazy on the inside, somebody could blow the weld on the outside and then probably take a die grinder and just eat out the little bit of weld that I'm being careful not to burn into it hard when I get to that edge. So it wouldn't be too bad to pull these. Now, if I go crazy building the edge up and really burning weld into it, then that turns into more of a nightmare. So it's just an issue of trying to make this as serviceable in the future as possible. But we're looking good. We're basically to the stage where I got to start flipping and flopping this thing so we can start working on faces and, yeah, getting some grinding done. I want to get this spherical out of here because there's new ones coming. And I was beating on it a bit, but that was too much work, so we're going to try this. Oh yeah, she's walking now. She's out. Sketchy. Not gonna lie, pretty sketchy. Yeah, we're gonna do some welding on there. I can't ignore that. It's just too friggin' ugly. All right, that one is good enough. I'm gonna hit the bottom one, just knock some of the big lumpies off and get rid of the welds. Get that ready for a side plate to get reinstalled now. That is looking spiffy. All right. We're getting there, guys, we're getting there. All right, so I've got this thing flipped over. I'm ready to start welding on the other side, but I do not want to have to try to drill out my grease fit passages when I'm done. So I am making myself some carbon plugs to go up in there, is what I'm up to here. And the holes are a little smaller right where they come through. So I've sanded a pretty good taper on them. And now I'm just tapping them into place. Letting the taper hold it. And then I'm also going over these and looking for, I'm trying to knock out anything in here that looks like it might be a hardened chunk of bushing that stayed behind. We're ready for the final flip. So that end doesn't need any attention. This end, as you can see, very mangled face here. And then I still have to deck this all off. So I think what we're gonna do is I'll do some grinding on that to start with, so that if there's anything I want to fill in there, I can do it while I'm filling that face. Howdy.
Okay. Tractor wasn't really buying to start, but I had to give a little bit of gas before it start up.
Nice. Start okay after that?
Yep.
Good. Well, time for what I hope is the last of the welding on this project. right now I've got 4 blocks in here. Now I don't think it's actually touching all of them because this thing's got a little twist in it. Last I checked, yeah, that one would still move. And then I've got 2 clamps, one here, one here. I trust those to hold it down. I don't trust those to keep it from moving. You know, if we get vibrating, you get chatter. So now I'm putting this on as a backstop so that it can't walk away from me as I'm machining. Just one more prevent it from walking, and then we'll go ahead and put a clamp on it. I'm not going to clamp it real tight just because this face isn't perfectly square to this, and I don't want to throw it out. But what I want this for is it'll help kill vibration. Snug it on there, and that'll get rid of a lot of goofy harmonics. So, all right, let's have at it. My tool stick out when I get to my finished dimension. So I've got my bore size and tool stick out past this boring bar. This head I made out of a piece of my 2 1/4 inch boring bar, but it's 2 inches under nominal, so it's 2.248. And what I've done there is just given myself a dimension from the face so that I've got some frame of reference as I'm going. Just trying to come up with what appears to be a reasonable starting depth of cut to start cleaning up this hole. See what she does. Already she's way too heavy of a cut on the bottom. But it's doing a better job of it than I expected it to. We'll go ahead and back this thing off a little bit. That's the trick with these first passes on major like blown bores that had to get welded up, is you just never end up perfectly round, and you end up building up one side more than the other, that kind of stuff. I think what I want to do is cut through here and then reach straight over to the other side and do some cutting there, because I want to see if we're looking reasonably centered up between the two. That's just as important. If, you know, I don't want to be cutting this and find out, oh, the other one was way off from where this one is. Very heavy cut on this side here is what's going on right now. And then we'll have to see what happens when we hit this plate. So far, so good. Well, made it through the first pass. Let's see how badly gnawed up my tool is. Not too bad. Good enough to get some feel for how my alignment looks on the other side, which is what we're really after with this. This is going to be pretty sketchy here. We're hanging out a long ways. Just wanted to see. Well, it looks, I would say, pretty comparable to what I'm getting on the other side. So that's what I was wanting to see, is if I like what I'm seeing there, is it going to clean up here? So I'd say the answer is yes. We're not cutting quite as heavy as we were on the other side, but this one didn't get built up quite as far. But you can see we're cutting mostly around this side. That's where the crazy wear was, so I intentionally was putting a lot of filler in there, trying to make sure I had enough, and I overbuilt it a little bit. That's what I did. But anyway, all right, well, I think we're ready to back up and reset and cut this one to size, and then we'll deal with that one. Oh yeah, she's just trudging off 50 on the side. Nice. Let her eat then. Another 50 thou on the side pass, just about wrapped up here. Looking really good. We're see what we measure here, but I think we're about one pass from cleaning up, and we should have more than enough material in here then for that. So at least this hole isn't looking like it should need any more welding. Yeah, I've got almost 100 thou to go to finish dimensions, so 50 on the side. I think we're going to clean her up. So I think what we're going to do now is check my cutting edge. Pretty good. We're going to go for 25 on the side again now. Start easing up on our finished number a little bit. Well, that hole is a far cry from what it was when we started already, I can tell you that. So, assuming you guys see on camera, I got one spot there and then, you know, a little bit of a rounded off edge and a spot there, but we are not chasing those. I learned a long time ago it just is not worth it. Functionally, it makes no difference to the surface, and just is going to make a weird little hard ripply spot there when I try touching that up. So we're going to go ahead, set to final dimension, and cut this sucker. All right, we got 6 thou on the side to go. So we are going to, let's see. Okay, let her rip. That 6 thou is almost enough to make them last spots go away. Not quite, but it came dumb close. really good. I got one weird little cavity there. It's like I got just a bit of a cold lap between weld seams there, or weld joints there. And I got that, which is the valley between a couple of weld beads that didn't quite clean up. But very solid bore though. I'm very happy with that. We're gonna quick pull a measurement here. See where I'm at. We are good to go. So I think we're going to just switch gears now to boring the next hole over. I still have to face this off, but I'm going to do that after I've done the bores. Right now I'm all nice, lined up, zeroed out, got this tooling in. So once I'm done with bores, I'll come back with a big face mail and deck that off. But anyway, well, let's get reset for the next one. So we're taking 20 on a side right now, which is a pretty good bite considering we're stretched out here, something pushing 2 foot with the spindle. It's about all we're going to get away with doing this. And even at this, we're getting quite a bit of spindle deflection, I'm sure, but we'll back it down substantially before we get to our finish passes. Seems to be handling that okay though. Well, we've just been cruising away here, 20 thou on a side per pass. We're just starting to scratch the far wall now. Got about 100 thou to go to finish dimensions, so I got a suspicion we got some stuff over here that's not going to clean up on this one. But it's okay, we'll get a little closer and then see where we need to do some touch up. We're making progress. Alright, so we're within about 15 on the side of finished dimension here, and as you can see, we are a long ways from cleaning up. So we're going to do a little welding in here and see if we can fix that problem. Alright, so we got to do some welding here, which means administering some anti-spatter. And while I do use actual anti-spatter in some situations, on a lot of stuff like this, I've discovered that just soaking stuff down good with WD-40 is just about as good. Like here, I actually want some in the bore because I don't want it to spatter up. Spatter sticks like crazy to fresh machine surfaces. So let's get this thing shielded up and do some welding. Finish cut. 4 thou on a side. Tool is getting a little bit dull, but I didn't want to stop sharpening it with this little to go. So see what kind of finish we get out of this. Not awful. I might have to hit it with a hone, clean her up a little bit. Basically pretty good. Well, that hole is done. I got a few little divots in there. I got like a tiny one there. Barely a shadow one there. I can't even feel that with my finger. But at any rate, looking pretty good. So, time to get this thing yanked off here and flipped around so I can tackle that end. So, yeehaw, here she goes. Alright, so I forgot that I had some machining yet to do on this face, so not that it's a big deal. But anyway, we're going to come do that before we go getting crazy and moving anything off. Feeding down with the head and across with the table simultaneously, so we're basically cutting a 45 across, and then once I fully engage with the face, we'll see. I'm probably going to have to kick the down feed out and cut across a little ways a bit. I was cutting my way around here, somewhere in here my cutter sucked in on me. I'm not really sure what happened. If the table shifted. This isn't as bad as it looks, a little bit of a step, but I was actually not quite as deep in as I needed to be yet, so I decided to just quit because obviously I've got a bunch of missing material here, and I'm just going to fill that and hand grind it, and I'll just blend all of this in by hand because I've got a bit of a step there I got to get rid of. It's like, you know what, we hogged most of the metal off, we'll go ahead and just finish that up by hand. But anyway, overall though, I am very happy. We've got 2 ready to run bores here and just need the little touch up clean up by hand on this end. So next steps, flip this thing around and get the one ear that's bad on that end fixed. Alright, let's try stomping around.
Nice.
Alright, time to do the ones on the other end. Now the question is, how tight have we locked up the ball? Is it too tight? Yes, it is definitely too tight. Alright, darn. It's interesting, is the one on the other end was a little bit looser on the bore. I overshot the number that I was aiming for by about thou and a half on that end. That one still swivels, and this one, just that thou and a half tighter, doesn't. Now, these are 2 different brands of sphericals, so I don't know if it's just in my tolerance variation between them, but I'm putting some crazy press on these, so I knew I was pushing it. Like, I'm running 2 thou an inch of press on this. I'm a little under that on that end, but so at any rate, we're gonna have to stomp her back out of there and hone this bore a bit. Which is a pain in the butt the more I think about it, but I'm gonna have to turn myself a new tool to get it out with. Well, that worked beautifully. Machine is out, nothing is wrecked. Now I just gotta find out why the deadgum thing did not swivel. My suspicion is that it might have as much to do with how much internal play there is in the spherical as it does with anything. Alright, and as you would expect, back to full swiveliness now that it's no longer stomped in a hole. There we go. Too fast sometimes. No, that was slow. Alright. Hey, nab it, you friggin' thing. Very awkward business, that. You gotta take it easy the first little bit, because when you're first on fresh machine surface, it cuts like crazy because it's knocking the high spots off. Well, I'm right dead on it. So that right there was 2 thou. That's what we took out doing that. About where I figured we'd be. So I now, as much as I don't want to, I'm going to stomp it back in. We're at the dimension that the bore on the other end was. I was 2 thou bigger with it. I double checked that. So now I want to stomp this bushing back in and see if it swivels now. I've got 2 different brands. This is some no-namer, and this is I think an SKF. Yeah. I feel like that's a no-namer I put in the other end. I feel like the SKF seems like it's a little bit tighter. Maybe it's my imagination, but with that assumption in mind, something else I'm doing this time is really cleaning this thing out, because it did occur to me that, well, it doesn't take much grit or grime in this thing when it gets stomped in there to stop the party either. I'm not putting all the anti-seize on these, by the way, that I normally do, because they have a huge lead-in radius on them. And I don't see any reason to believe these are going to try and gall up. And so far, that theory has proven to be consistently accurate. So I'm going to carry on. Keep on keeping on, as they say. So we're running a good 25 to 30% less tonnage to make it go in this time than last time. Very noted difference on the pressure gauge. We're down to about 1.5 thou an inch press here instead of 2 thou. So perfect world, I would like it to be a fit where I have to tap the ball, but it turns just with tapping it. Like, that would be the tightest that I can be. Let's see. Yes. That is exactly what I want. Well, it broke loose. Now I can turn it a little by hand, but I can feel drag on it, though. It's we basically have turned it into a 0 clearance bearing at this press. So that is exactly what I was after. That's beautiful. All right, so now we just have to replicate that fit up here. So I'm going to go pull this extension I added back off from here. And then we'll press this in. All right, time to hold the last one. This is one of them tools that I don't know how a lot of these guys are getting. Like, I watch a lot of the channels. Maybe some of you have channels. And I don't know how anybody lives without a set of these. Sun and Hones, it is. It is locked up. Probably has to do with it going all wonky cockeyed on the way in to start with. We gotta drive down a ways anyhow. Actually, I want to try something here, because I want to see if the guy I'm doing this for is going to be able to move these if he decides he needs to. I want to be able to drive them. I'm curious if they're drivable. Ooh, didn't feel very mobile. Alright, I think I'm going to pull that one back out. Just to make sure. What I'm worried about is that I might have kicked up some kind of a burr when I was going in and it went crooked to start with. Slightly roughed up on this side, but nothing crazy. I think we're going to just hit it with the hone a second, just in case I've got any boogers. Really nothing that awful that should have been producing that effect. So I think we just mostly have a, who knows, we'll see. We shove it back in. If nothing else, shoving it through there burnishes the hole a bit. Well, everybody, that is it. So even after taking it out, rehoning that a bit, that one is still quite tight. I can swivel it, beating on it with a dead blow. So that's good enough. I really like this fit a little better where it's snug, but I can shove it around my hand. But I'm not taking it out a third time. I'm already, what we have clearly proven at this point is that there's a difference in the fit, the internal fit between this import bearing and the German-made SKF. And I've got the holes fitted right now so they fit the SKF nice, a little snug on the import one, but that'll loosen itself up in use, and I really don't want to be creating. Right now, all three of the holes I did are almost dead nuts the same. So, at any rate, that one is, I say, just snug, swivels by hand. They only had 3 of these sphericals. They ordered some more in. They're supposed to have the rest in tomorrow, and then we'll stomp that one into the hole that we didn't have to fix. And then, by golly, it's time for this to get out of here. So, at any rate, they're going to come tomorrow, bring their other spherical with them. I'll stomp it in, and they're leaving with it. So, there you have it. That's the end of the BRON trencher arm, and we'll dive into the next project. We got a Bobcat T200 sitting outside right now waiting on a bore to get repaired. So that's probably the next thing we'll have in here. Catch you guys in the next one.